I noticed in your latest presentation, and I've seen this before in other HPA kind of projects where you talk about the purity grade. So I assume that's the different products that you can make.
Yes.
Can you run through that and just obviously that the different grades, different product, different pricing,
Yeah.
things like that. So can you run through that what that is and the where you guys look to be at? I
Yeah.
guess if that's a right question to ask.
Certainly. So, in the high purity alumina space, we talk about the impurities, or how few impurities there are in the material, and that's normally described as a percentage. So, 99.9% is 3 nines. So, and that can have sort of up to 10,000 ppm 1,000 ppm of impurities. And then the 4N is 99.99%. So you've only got 100 parts per million of impurities. So that's getting down to some very fine, fine detail at that point. And most of the bulk of the use of the material is in that 3N and 4N space. That's where the bulk of the material is used in the HPA market. There are 5N, so 99.999%, and even supposedly 6 nines, which do command very high prices in the marketplace. However, they're not very large markets. We're only talking about a few tons a year or a few thousand tons a year max. And so you can't build a business around those very high purity products. You have to build it around the 3N and the 4N, and then if you get cream off the top, that'll be the 5N and the 6N. So look, it's a relatively straightforward process to get to those numbers, but they do command high prices if you can get there.
The other page that you had was the cost curve analysis.
Yeah.
And that obviously is which N you're after is your cost, right?
Yeah.
So where does impact see itself positioning?
Well, in the HPA space, the incumbents are predominantly Japanese and Chinese producers. And as far as we can ascertain, they're producing HPA at a cost, that's a cost to them of somewhere between 15,000 US dollars a ton up to 25,000 US dollars a ton. That's production cost. And that's because most of that material is produced from the refining of aluminium metal. So aluminium metal is normally dug out of the ground as bauxite, goes through the Bayer process, which is fairly energy intensive, environmentally unfriendly, produces aluminium metal, and then that gets sent to the HPA producers, who then refine that metal again back into aluminium oxide, and that's where they get their end result, their end product from. But over the last few years, and one of the reasons that HPA has been in the ASX mindset, marketplace, and people trying to get HPA projects going, is that they're looking at doing a hydrometallurgical approach. So the majority of which are doing hydrochloric acid leaching of kaolin, which is very different to our process. And then there's also Alpha HPA, their code is A4N, it's worth looking at their story. They've been very successful in the HPA space. They're using a chemical feedstock to help to produce their HPA. And their prices of production are, we think, around about maybe 6, 7, 8,000 US dollars per ton. So quite a step change from the 15 to 25,000. And it's one of the reasons that Alpha HPA, I think, has been successful, because they're starting to nail offtake agreements and starting to gain traction. So we believe very strongly that our cost of production is going to be at least at that level, if not significantly lower, as we will see when the scoping study comes out. So we're talking a very disruptive approach to the entire HPA marketplace. It's being led by Australian juniors, and we think that we're going to be a significant player in that space.
So the disruption you're talking about is coming from the processing side, or the method to do it.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And Alpha is using bauxite as a feed?
No, they're using a chemical feedstock, so they're actually using byproduct chemicals from Orica, the fertilizer and explosives company, plus material from the bauxite process. We're not exactly sure what that is, and they're using that then to produce HPA. They have, a bit like us, they were a junior explorer a decade ago. They came across a novel process to produce HPA. discovered it would work on laterite clays, but then also discovered it worked on this chemical feedstock. So they've basically jumped to become an industrial chemicals company, and their market cap hit $1 billion just recently. So they've certainly been doing the right thing. And it's a novel approach, but despite the fact they're not mining, that process is still quite expensive relative to the other hydromet processes that are out there at the moment. And as I say, we believe that we'll be at least equivalent to them, if not cheaper, once we get the scoping study finalised.